90 years ago, people started arriving in Owensboro, Kentucky before sunrise. Not for a parade, not for a festival, not for a ball game. They came because a man was going to die. And Kentucky had decided that anybody who wanted to watch could. Owensboro had only about 23,000 residents at the beginning of that decade. But on the morning of August 14, 1936, estimates say somewhere between 10 and 20,000 people crowded into and around the downtown. Some they had driven in from other towns. Some they had traveled from other states. Reporters, they showed up. Photographers, yep, they were there too. Families, they would be there. Children were even there. And in the middle of all of them stood a wooden scaffold. Because that morning, a young man named Rainey Bethea was going to be hanged in public. It would become known as the last fully public execution in American history. But that part, well, would eventually stay within Owensboro was not simply that a man died there. It was what happened when an entire city became the audience. And 90 years later, the strangest question may not be why America stopped doing this. It may be why so many people wanted to see this in the first place. What do you think, Meg?
Isn't it weird how people are curious about that kind of stuff?
It is weird. But you got to think, I wasn't around 90 years ago. Maybe I'll call my gram. My gram was like 3 years old when this happened, roughly. And I think maybe just because it was expected and it was different. There wasn't social media back then. There was newspapers. There wasn't, I don't know, was there even TV back then 90 years ago? I mean, we're at the point where it's like, okay, well, this was expected. I mean, hangings have been happening for years. We've done stories here on the Your Town podcast where we've discussed them. And when somebody does something that warrants, in their opinion, back in the day, again, 90 years ago, things are a lot different here. They didn't just send them to jail to essentially serve their time. That was what it was. I mean, to this day, if you do something, there's still the death penalty, hanging. It was just one of the methods back then. And it's a lot different than lethal injection. I mean,
right.
It's a small room. It's controlled. It's everything. This was a public scene.
1928, by the way.
What's that?
For the first TV in homes was in the year of 1928.
So right around then, they were just getting the TVs going.
Sorry, 26.
All right.
Nope, I was right, 28.
28. All right, so in 2028, going to be a big milestone for the TV. But anyways, the voice you're hearing, it's me, it's Matt, it's Beard Laws. Over there is the Dun Dun Queen, Meg.
Hello.
This is the Your Town podcast where, we talk about the strange, the dark, and the unbelievable true stories of real places. And Owensboro sits, well, as a real place on the Ohio River in western Kentucky. How confusing is that? It's on the Ohio River in Kentucky.
It's a little weird.
I wonder, does the Ohio River even run through Ohio? But either way, today, Owensboro is a city that is more than 60,000 people. You know what they're known for? What would you say that people in Kentucky, Owensboro, what would they be known for? What comes to your brain when you hear Kentucky?
Horse races.
Horses. Bourbon, bluegrass, barbecue. Everything with the bees and a rebuilt riverfront. But you got to think in 1936, 8 years after the home started to get television, Owensboro was much smaller. The 1930 census, Meg, guess how many residents? The census. Do they even do censuses anymore? I haven't been mailed one.
Oh, I haven't had one in a few years.
Maybe they don't mail them anymore, but guess how many? 1930. How many people were in Owensboro, according to the census?
307.
Close. 22,765.
Oh, it's a big place. Okay.
It's a pretty big place.
I don't know. I didn't know if it was small town or big city.
Well, you got to remember earlier that they reported that huge audience, right?
Right, but I didn't know if that was like people traveling to come see, like they did for the eclipse up here. Small towns, you ended up with like thousands and thousands of people coming to watch the solar eclipse.
Did you just compare a solar eclipse to a man being hung in public?
I'm just saying public gatherings. Like,
Got you.
it could be a small town with a big gathering of people because of a certain event.
I know. I like it.
Okay.
Which means 22,765 people. That if the largest crowd estimates from August 14th are even close, the number of people gathered for the execution approached the population of the entire city. Think about that. Imagine every single person in your town all standing in one place.
I think people brought their children.
That's what it was reported.
Ugh.
I mean, so you have all of these people where you grew up, say that whole entire town.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person is in one place.
Mm.
But they're not waiting for fireworks. They were waiting for a trap door. And that's crazy to think about, right?
Uh-huh.
And, you know, this story that brought them there began a little more than 2 months earlier. Should we get into it, or you got some? What did you find over in your research? Were you doing research on something?
I was looking up the Ohio River.
Oh.
So the Ohio River runs along the entire southern border of the state of Ohio, separating it from Kentucky and West Virginia.
I guess being where we're from, we know the Northeast states a little bit better, right? I don't know geography. I just don't know it.
It empties into the Mississippi River.
Interesting. Like, I don't know, like, the Dude Network. Those guys are from Ohio and stuff. The big West Virginia fans. You know, sometimes they go to Kentucky when they're hitting the road. Like, I forget that they're all right there. I always just think Kentucky's farther south because we're in Canada. So,
yeah, it empties in Illinois.
Yeah. I don't know. Maps are weird. Want to get into this?
Yeah, sorry. I got sidetracked.
You're good. So this story,
had to know.
You had to know. It's out. I don't know what medication you probably should be on, but we're good.
Okay.
So this story that brought everybody there happened more than 2 months earlier than August, right? You had 71-year-old Lashia Edwards lived in Owensboro. She was a widow. And I just want to come out here to 90 years ago, and a lot of the research that we had done, times were different, especially in the South, all right? So this episode does have some adult style stuff. I'm going to try my best to, not give you the dark, twisted facts, but this is a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? There is some race stuff involved. So just want to throw that out there in this trial and everything. So there might be times where, people are referenced by their skin color. It's just how all of the research is. So I just want to preface that. Okay. So the widow was a white woman. All right. She's 70 years old. On June 7th, 1936, she was found dead inside her home. She had been assaulted in a very grotesque way and strangled. Investigators quickly focused on Rainey Bethea, who was a young black laborer who had been living and working in the Owensboro area. Evidence actually tied him to the Edwards home. So investigators, they recovered a ring that was associated with him at the scene along with fingerprints. I mean, could you imagine getting fingerprints in the 1930s? I mean, we've done so many different stories of the 1970s that they couldn't find fingerprints and all of this stuff. So do you think that they actually found them? Or do you think this was a quick accusation it had to be him?
Hard to say.
Obviously, it's hard to say. We don't know. We're not there. But I'm just thinking in my brain, times were different.
Right.
People are stupid and disgusting. Still happens today. Still some stupid and disgusting people. But just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to feel what you're thinking right now.
I don't know.
Okay.
I guess I'd have to know how they did it.
Fair enough.
But
Scotch tape.
I was also thinking like some kind of tape lift.
Some powder. Some baby powder and tape. Baking soda and tape. But here's the crazy part. There's some evidence. They arrest him. And then he confesses to the assault and the killing. He also directed authorities to jewelry that was taken from the Edwards home. There's an important distinction here because he was accused of the murder and let's go with the assault because I don't like the I don't like the R word that is an assault. I don't like saying it. So the assault and the murder he's accused of. But prosecutors charged and convicted him of only the assault. And that choice mattered, like a lot, because Kentucky law treated executions for those crimes differently. So someone sentenced to death for murder would normally be taken to the state penitentiary and executed by electrocution at the time. But a death sentence for the assault could still be carried out by hanging in the county where the crime occurred.
So that was a choice.
It appears that maybe some kind of law or something was maybe making a choice to say, hey, if we only accuse him of this, this is what happens instead of this. Again, we don't know. We weren't there, but he was admitting both. But maybe he was admitting both because he knew that if he was charged for both, it would be electrocuted. But at the end of the day, she still passed away. She still went through this terrible, violent experience. But the prosecuting for him and everything that went down because of what was charged, what was not, there would be an execution, and that execution would happen in Owensboro, outside, in front of whoever wanted to watch. And that legal technicality is one of the reasons Owensboro became the site of something the rest of America that was already ready and was leaving behind. Public executions had once been pretty common in the U.S. I mean, for generations, hangings could draw enormous crowds. They were punishment, but they were also warning. They were, at the time, a public ritual. And whether officials wanted to admit it or not, it was kind of entertainment at the time, wasn't it, Meg?
I guess for them.
I mean, kind of was. I mean, that's the definition. I mean, if you get 25, 30,000 people at a football game, it's more than a football game. It's entertainment. You get them at a wrestling match, it's entertainment. You get them at a concert, it's entertainment. You get these people there, I guess technically it's entertainment. I mean, what about the Roman days when you went to the Empire and they did crazy stuff like that, right? Beheadings and wow. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, glad I wasn't.
Same here. Although we'd probably be dead, not doing this if we were alive back then as an adult, unless you're a vampire.
True.
But anyways, by the 19th century and early 20th century, states increasingly moved execution behind prison walls. Public hangings were becoming embarrassing relics. Kentucky was one of the last states where the law could still put a condemned person on a scaffold in front of general population. And in 1936, Owensboro was about to discover what happened when modern mass media then collided with an old form of punishment. What do you think is going to happen? Not some good stuff, some good stuff?
Not so good.
The media was the media. Because there was something about this particular execution that attracted national attention before the scaffold was even built. Any guesses what that little particular detail was, Meg? Remember, 1930s. This is interesting.
The trial?
The sheriff was a woman.
Ooh, that's different.
Yeah, Florence Thompson had not spent years planning to become one of the most famous sheriffs in America. Her husband, Everett Thompson, had been Davies County Sheriff. After he died unexpectedly, Florence succeeded him in office. Oh, do you think she killed him? We have a little bit of an episode within an episode. We better dig into this a little bit.
Okay.
Just kidding. It's a bad joke. Maybe he died of a heart attack, or maybe he was, I don't know. He died unexpectedly, probably from arsenic poisoning from his wife. She wanted that sheriff job. You heard it here first at the Yore podcast. So, with all that being said, that placed her in charge when he was sentenced. And under Kentucky law, responsibility for the execution fell to the county sheriff. And because of all this, suddenly newspapers across the county and the country had a headline that they couldn't resist. A woman might hang a man. I mean, in the 30s, that's pretty wild, right? I mean, 2026, that's still pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
So national reporters, they all had to come to Owensboro to fulfill this headline, right? I just picture in the cameras. You think they still had the bulbs?
Probably.
Those would have been wild. What do you think they're worth now?
A lot.
You think so?
Yeah.
Do you have any?
No,
Uh-huh.
I don't.
Well, we could have been rich. But the story wasn't about the man. It wasn't about the crime. It became about the sheriff, Florence Thompson. Would she pull the lever? Would a woman personally spring the trap? Would she watch? Would she faint? Would she puke? Would she refuse? The press turned an execution into a serialized spectacle before it even happened. What do you think? Is she going to do it? Somebody else going to do it?
I think she is.
You think so?
I do.
Thompson, she did not personally perform the hanging. She arranged for another man to actually operate the mechanism. But by the time that all happened and everything else, it barely mattered, right?
Mm-hmm.
The national media had already told America something extraordinary was about to happen in Owensboro, and people listened. The original plan was to carry out the hanging in the courthouse yard. But there was a problem, Meg. What do you think the problem could have been?
Not big enough?
Officials expected that so many people would show up. They thought that the crowd would actually destroy landscaping that was around their precious, beautiful, sacred courthouse. So they moved the site of the execution, and a scaffold was built in the Daviess County garage lot. That lot, it sat real close to the riverfront. It was open, it was visible, and intentionally positioned so thousands could gather around it. I feel like that detail really tells you something about how public this execution really was. This wasn't just a prison execution where several dozen people witness and that they were selected to witness it. This wasn't a closed room. There was no invitation list that was decided who was allowed to see. If you could get to Owensboro, you could stand there. So people began driving and arriving during the night. I mean, just imagine downtown Owensboro in the dark. Cars coming in from surrounding counties, headlights moving through the streets. Hotels and restaurants were full and booming. Reporters, they were setting up their equipment, getting ready for the execution. People, they tried to get as close as they could to that scaffold. Some historical accounts, they actually described that vendors were out selling food and drinks. Others described parties the night before that were crazy and actually led to a couple of arrests. And soon, newspapers from outside Kentucky would portray Owensboro as almost a carnival that was built around a man's death. And that description, it became famous. But there's a problem, Meg. People who were actually there, they later argued that parts of it were just simply exaggerated. And that is where the story gets much more interesting than the version that's usually told. Yeah, you ready for it? Because for decades, the common summary went something like this, all right? 20,000 bloodthirsty spectators came to Owensboro. They shouted. They laughed. The executioner was drunk. People rushed the body afterward looking for souvenirs. The entire thing became such a disgusting circus that America finally ended public executions. That's a fantastic story, right? It's clean, it's simple, and parts of it may be wrong. I mean, could you imagine how sick it would have been if there was eBay back then? Somebody rushed it, stole a shoe or something and sold it.
Right. I'm envisioning like a 90s mosh pit.
A 90s mosh pit at this execution?
Like the crowd, getting like rowdy and like trying to get to the front and pushing and shoving.
How about Black Friday at Walmart when they first started doing Black Friday at Walmart? That's what it's more like, right? So there was a historian, Perry Ryan, can't trust a man with two first names, later would interview witnesses and studied the contemporary record. Local newspapers, they fiercely disputed national reports portraying the crowd as a screaming mob. Black Friday Walmart, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Owensboro Messenger argued that the crowd was largely quiet and orderly. One contemporary local account accused outside journalists of arriving expecting a spectacle, then they had to exaggerate things when it was just kind of calm. Even memories decades later, they differed. Some residents remembered a carnival. Others remembered silence. Some remembered vendors and excitement. Others said that their parents described as just kind of a solemn crowd. So what actually happened? Probably something messier than either version. I mean, there were thousands of people there. People absolutely traveled specifically to see another human being executed. There was food vendors that were reported, and the national press absolutely made the event probably bigger than what it was, or they got to sell the newspapers back then. It's not like you go to a website and you have to subscribe to see all the good stuff, right?
Right.
But some of the most lurid details, like a mob tearing at his body for souvenirs, appear to have been exaggerated or invented. And my brain says there's going to be more than one cop on that stage. You're going to have a bunch of cops. The execution's going to happen. Then usually there's a doctor on site. The doctor checks to make sure that the person is actually gone.
Mm-hmm.
Then they would probably put it in a vehicle. See you later, right?
Yeah, that's what I would envision.
I mean, that's what I feel like I've seen on the movies. And all of this is what makes Owensboro's story pretty strange, right? Because now we're not just asking why people came. We're actually asking what America wanted the crowd to have been. And back at the Daviess County Jail, Rainey Bethea was preparing to walk to the scaffold. He had been sentenced only weeks earlier. His trial had moved with astonishing speed. Recent Kentucky reporting, drawing on archives, notes that the trial lasted less than a day, and that all of the jury members were white, and they only deliberated for a few minutes. There's no serious need to pretend that the physical evidence against him was weak. It wasn't. I mean, there was a ring there that was his. There was fingerprints that tied him to the scene, and he confessed. I mean, he directed authorities towards stolen property. But the strength of the evidence and the fairness of the process, I feel like those are two very different questions, right?
Right.
But it was Kentucky in 1936. He was a black man that was accused of very bad things to a white woman. And he was tried by an all-white jury. His defense, I guess, they barely said anything. And within weeks of a crime that he was, convicted, he was facing a scaffold in front of thousands of spectators. The legal system had moved from accusation to execution with a terrifying speed. I mean, right? That's crazy.
It is.
And outside the jail, the crowd was simply waiting. Before dawn, on August 14th, officials, they brought him from jail toward the scaffold. Photos, they survived from the morning. That matters because unlike older public executions described only in newspapers or drawings, this one was photoed pretty heavily. I mean, you can look directly at Owensboro that morning. You can see the crowd. You can see the 1930 hats, the shoulders just packed together. People kind of moving their necks all around just to try to get a view. You can see the wooden platform that was rising above them. You can see the man. The Daviess County Public Library actually preserves a photo taken from inside the crowd, showing him standing on the scaffold moments before the execution. And that photo is one of those historical images where the background almost becomes more important than the subject, right? But behind all the scaffold, there are all of those faces, like hundreds of them. And behind those hundreds of them were thousands more. People who woke up before sunrise because they wanted to be there. I mean, he climbed the scaffold. Then they put a hood over his head. They took the noose. They positioned it. There was a mark on the trapdoor where he had to stand, and he was instructed to. Then the sheriff delegated the actual release mechanism to Arthur Hesh, a former Louisville police officer. So he wasn't even an active officer, former officer. Another experienced executioner, Phil Hanna, assisted with the process. Accounts later claimed that the ex-cop that they brought back in, Hash, was pretty drunk. He was drinking pretty heavily to do this. Exactly how impaired he was? Well, that's become part of the folklore that surrounds this whole execution.
Right.
I mean, feel like you probably want to be a little tipsy if you got to take another man's life in front of that many people.
Pretty heavy job.
I mean, that's a tough one. I wonder how he was the one that wasn't even an actual officer, but was deemed the one to do it. Wild, right? But even accounts sympathetic to the local crowd described confusion over the mechanism because the signal was given, but he didn't immediately act. Another officer eventually had to come in and trigger the trap. Maybe that adds to the he was too drunk to do it theory, huh?
Maybe.
But the other officer steps in, triggers it, the door opens, he drops, and approximately 14 minutes later, doctors on scene pronounced that he was dead. For the thousands watching, the thing that they had traveled to see was over, finally. And then came the part Owensboro could not control. The story. The story left the town. Newspapers across the county published the photos. Some described Owensboro as barbaric. Some described a mob. Some described the hanging as a weird, grotesque holiday. The Chicago American ran a front page headline that essentially accused 20,000 people of coming to Kentucky to have a good time while a man died. The imagery was absolutely devastating. I mean, you had a man hanging from a rope, a massive crowd beneath him, a female sheriff turned into a publicity hook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reporters talking about food, jokes, and spectators looking for souvenirs. The rest of the county, or Owensboro, just became a symbol. Not of justice, no, of a spectacle. The city hated it. Local residents argued the national newspaper had smeared Owensboro. The local press complained that visiting journalists ignored the crowd's quiet behavior because a peaceful execution, it didn't fit the story they wanted. Whether the national reporting was fair or not, the photos were impossible to explain away. Thousands of people gathered for it. They weren't forced there. They came because the hanging was public. That became the larger problem, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about what the government was trying to do with an execution like this. It was supposed to demonstrate the power of law. Crime was committed, a conviction was secured, a punishment was imposed. The state wanted the public to witness justice. Once thousands of spectators arrived, I feel like the meaning changed, right? Now the state was also staging an event. What do you think of all this, Meg?
So did people know this was going to be the last one?
No.
Or was that decided afterwards?
Throughout the rest of the country, they were shutting them down. And this was the last one, I think. But like we kind of mentioned earlier, once you start adding, the media that can now produce stuff masses, there's TVs in homes, I think it made Owensboro look so bad that nobody else wanted to look so bad in front of national media. I mean, you probably got people from big fancy cities like New York City and LA and all these places going like, what is Kentucky doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I know they got a derby and some bourbon, but they're just killing people on the streets for fun. Like it didn't trap them well, right? Or it didn't trap them. It didn't showcase that city well. Like who's going to go back to Owensboro now other than people that want to see where a man died for some reason? And I mean, I'm sure Owensboro's still trying to figure out the meaning of it 90 years later. I mean, was the city unfairly smeared by sensational reporters, you think, Meg? A little or no? Or was it their own decisions that led to this? And it was like...
I think the first.
Do you think the crowd was more Carnival style or a little quieter than history remembers?
I feel like it might have been more Carnival-like. But I just wondered if the media had put out this event being the last of its kind. Maybe that's why it drew such a large crowd.
So they didn't paint it as last. But that comes to my next question. Did national embarrassment, do you think that ended public executions?
Mm-hmm.
Or had society already decided that putting death on display was kind of indefensible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like all the questions we asked, I think it's a little bit of it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go to Owensboro now. You can stand near that Ohio River that runs through all sorts of states and dumps into the Mississippi. You can see the modern convention center. You can walk downtown. Cars pass. People eat dinner there. Kids playing near the riverfront. There's nothing about the place that screams, America once gathered here to watch a man hang. And maybe, just maybe, that is why the story works so well as a story about a place, right? Because the photos, they feel impossible next to the city that exists right now. I mean, a sea of people were standing there. Somewhere above them was a scaffold. A man climbed to it, the trapdoor opened, and an era ended. Not because America stopped executing people. It didn't. It ended because of Owensboro. I mean, we stopped inviting everybody to come watch. So 90 years ago, that crowd, it came before sunrise. Some came because they believed justice was being done, and, well, some probably came out of curiosity. Some came because everybody was going. Some came for the history of it. And some may not have known why they wanted to see it until they were standing there. And some probably wanted to turn and walk away, but they had already standing there, right? That's the part no archive can tell us. The photos, they show the faces. They cannot tell us what the people were thinking, but they leave us with a very uncomfortable truth. The last fully public execution in America did not happen behind prison walls. It happened in the middle of a community in front of thousands of just ordinary people. And after 90 years, the scaffold's gone, the crowd's gone. Even the man's grave is difficult to find. But the place remains. Owensboro, Kentucky, a river town where for one morning in 1936, the government built a stage and America came to watch somebody die. That's the Your Town podcast. The strange, the dark, and unbelievable true stories of real places. That's all I got this week. You got anything else, Meg?
Nope.
I'll do it again next week?
Sure.
All right, you heard it here. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.